Hello, everyone. I hope you are all doing fine. So it's already the third and the last day of our conference. Welcome to this virtual summit, Wallifornia MusicTech Virtual Summit 2020. So today we will speak about esport and music and innovation on those industries. And the last session also today will be the demo day of our acceleration program. So 25 startups will pitch their project to you, so please do not miss it. So the first panel of the day is a panel around esports and media. Our awesome panelists are Bertrand Amar, Head of Esport at Webedia, Nicolas Bourdon, Chief Marketing Officer at EVS Broadcast Equipment, Carette, Esport and Gaming Expert at RTBF, Samy Bessi, Esports Engage Managing Director, and finally Laure Valée, Esport Journalist. Guys, thank you very much for being with us, and the stage is yours.
Thank you, Jérôme, and welcome everyone for this new panel dedicated, as you say, to esports and media. I'm very happy to be here with you today with some very interesting people around me, or almost around me. And let's start with Laure Valée. Hello, Laure, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to have this panel today.
Very good to see you, Laure. You're the host of the League of Legends European Championship based in Berlin, but your work as well on traditional television, like you used to do on Canal Plus, and since 2 or 3 years now on BeIN Sports. So
2 years, yeah.
2 years now, right. About to start the third season. And very happy to have you on this panel, as you both work on the two kind of medias, digital and traditional linear. With us this morning as well, Nicolas Bourdon from EVS. Hello, Nicolas.
Hello, Bertrand. Thank you for having me with you today.
So first of all, what is EVS?
EVS is EVS is a company based in Liège, but with an international presence. So we're active in live broadcast production technology. So very well known for last 25 years by revolutionizing the world of live sports, introducing the live slow motion technology, which has been further extended to other types of technologies, live content management, switching operations, and many other types of applications. So we are mainly active in sports. So sports represents about 80% of our activity. So we also extended to all the types of markets like news and entertainment. And for the last 4 to 5 years, so we see a real strong development of EVS in the esports environment.
Okay, yes, you work with Blizzard, ESL, Riot, Ubisoft.
Exactly.
Yes, we see
all the big names.
What are the differences between production for traditional sports and production for esports? And they are actually together in the RTBF head office in Brussels. Carette from the RTBF. Hello, Greg.
Hello, Bertrand. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me over there.
So, Greg, you're in charge of the esports on the RTBF channels?
Yes, actually, 3 years ago, RTBF created a media for young people, absolutely digital, called Tarmac, based on the urban culture. It's about fashion, it's about music, of course, it's about dance. But I was lobbying for years in RTBF to develop culture of video games and esports, and I found in Tarmac a way to come in, and I proposed to Thomas Duprel, the chief editor of Tarmac, to develop this culture of geek things and esports, and he said yes with a little budget. That's why we created the channel, the Twitch channel of Tarmac 3 years ago. That means the RTBF, which is a public service, the Belgian broadcaster public, has a Twitch channel for 3 years now. And more we're developing things with the local partners over there, about events, about digital content, about possibility to develop the ecosystem because we want to be in the center of the ecosystem about gaming and esports. Yes, and it's on digital, it's on television too, but
Great.
we will talk about that later.
Thank you, Greg, and welcome, Samy. Samy Bessi, how are you, Samy? You're the co-founder of the Epsilon eSport team. You're also a member of the WESCO, the World Esport Consortium. We're going to talk about this later. And as well, the founder of Esport Engage, which is basically a production company and a talent management company involved in esports.
Yeah, hello Bertrand, hello world, hello everyone. In fact, I just opened a startup. Being in esports for more than a decade now, I go back to my roots, meaning my country. I'm born in Belgium. I'm here in the center of Europe in Brussels, quite a nice place. And I'm the managing director. I opened Esport Engage, which is a company which is based on three pillars. On a low level, it's media, so production, content, high quality, engaging, of course. The second pillar is talent, so influencer, players, but everything on the Belgium level so far. And the third one is a little bit more general, is about consulting all the esport projects, but with the real insight of the business and the real ROI.
Okay, clear. Laure, we're going to start with you. So you work for Digital Medias. We can see you on Twitch every week with the LEC, the European Championship of League of Legends, with
Correct.
you on Gaming in French. But we see you as well on a traditional linear TV channel. You used to work for Canal+. You are now on BeIN Sports every week for a weekly esports magazine called BeIN Sports. What are, according to you, the main differences between working as a host and a journalist on a digital platform like Twitch and on linear TV?
It's very different. And I mean, you know how I started, right? I came from the internet, from Twitch, and went to TV afterwards. And the first thing you have to know when you work in the internet and on TV is that you have so many constraints that you have on TV, so many timelines that you have to respect, like time frames that you have to stick on. On the internet, you're pretty much free. Like if you want to run a 52-minute show and you want to extend it to like an hour and a half show, that works. But I mean, imagine it being esports. If I show up on Monday and say, okay, you know what? Instead of having 26 minutes, we're going to have 50 minutes on BeIN. I don't think Florent would like that. So the way we work and the way we have to respect deadline and I mean, TV processes is very different from the internet. But I mean, more and more, especially the way I work with the LEC, for instance, as you said in Berlin, this is TV standard production, right? The needs we have, the assets we have, this is basically TV. And we also have to work on a tight schedule also. So I think that you have two kinds of approaches here. You have the basic linear TV, as you said, and internet as we consume it. And more, the way esports develops, you tend to see bigger productions that tend to look like TV, but it's not quite there yet. So I just want to say, it's about process and the fact that you have to respect deadlines mostly.
But as well, it's not the same audience, so you cannot use the same word. You got a mainstream audience that is not familiar with all the esports world, even the esports player, the esports team. And when you talk on Twitch, everybody knows already what you are talking about. So I think this is also something very different, and you have to adapt even your languages.
It is. And I mean, you don't have the same bridge, right? When you work on TV, you don't have Twitch chats, basically. That's all that means. I mean, and when you're on the internet, you see the audience, you talk with them, you see how they react by the minutes, basically. So in that sense, you allow yourself to be a bit more familiar, which you can't do on TV because of CSA, other stuff like that you have to respect. But yet again, Bertrand, in the LEC, I would act the same way I act in BeIN, for instance. Gaming is a different story. Other medias may be a different story, but you have this kind of high standard production that you have to see the same way you see TV. But I mean, when you look at the audience and the fact that you can see their reaction by the minute, I think it's also why internet is a bit more loose in this way. But over time, I mean, if it's going to get bigger, I think this is also meant to change in the long run.
Nicolas, just like Laure, you work for a traditional linear broadcaster. You produce a lot of traditional sport content at EVS. I mean, your material, your stuff is used to produce traditional sports content, but as well, as you have said, since a few years, more and more esport content. You are working with Blizzard, ESL, Riot Games, Ubisoft now. Is it the same stuff, the same control room you use, and what are the specificities of the esports production?
But I would say it's a really interesting question. So I would say on the, like Laure said, on the kind of premium types of production. So we see, and that's actually the way we entered this market, because basically we noticed that there were a certain number of players like Riot or ESL were actually requesting our technology to produce really premium level of production, really kind of very similar linear type of production. So using replays, using video switchers, using different types of equipment that you would see similarly used and operated in a sports environment. But what we see and what we've seen very rapidly and digging into the discussions with all these players is that the need to produce more and faster was effectively extremely high. So indeed, so there is the need to provide the mainstream production, I would say, on TV, but then in parallel to that, so there is a need of providing a lot of different types of content, highlights, different perspectives, different views that observers will identify, and that they will distribute either effectively on Twitch, on YouTube streaming, but also on the different social networks, and then for which they need effectively kind of, we call that snackable content, taking into consideration that indeed the audience is very different. So it's a less captive audience. So very quickly they will move from one platform to the other, and they will move away. So the challenge for the broadcasters in an esports environment is really to keep this level of appealing content to their audience. So that being said, so that was a very interesting experience for us, because we at EVS working on different types of new technologies which accelerates and which manipulates different types of content in a much faster way, where sometimes we felt that it was sometimes difficult to integrate into a normal and traditional sports environment, where we noticed that the production team in esports would be really attracted by. So namely, we had a new types of video switchers, which was extremely flexible in the way the content could be generated, not only to generate content on the different streaming platform, but also to create the entertainment within the in-game environment. So we call that the in-game entertainment. So really producing different types of content in the screen within the arena itself. So we've started actually to use esports organization as some sort of an incubation of new technology for us, and we feel that there is a real willingness to jump into these new technologies, while we will see in sports sometimes some reluctancy to move from the traditional way of producing content.
Excellent, thank you very much. Greg Carette from the RTBF. Greg, we know that Twitch and YouTube seems to be the natural broadcast channel for esports. So according to you, how can linear television exist in that environment?
Actually, yeah, Twitch and YouTube exist, and we must work with this network. For the RTBF, the most important is the public. So, the expression fish where the fish are. So the people involved in esports and video games are not so young, but really young. And they are on YouTube, they are on Twitch. So we must exist on this network. But also we need to provide the television, the old one television, as a esports provider. But actually, what is television? Is it about linear offer? Is it a debate? Is it television when you take a YouTube content and you put it on a screen? What is television? What is digital? I guess it's more and more debates inside the RTBF and outside with the partner and broadcaster. But actually, we try to develop some content about video games for television. Actually, it's a question also of mentality of people. We have a sport department here, not also old-fashioned. They are listening to our advices, but they are really cool about esports. They are agree on esports when it's football simulation, when it's basket simulation, when it's about sim racing. But I wouldn't ask them to broadcast Street Fighter tournament or League of Legends. Even we did on our digital player with Charleroi Esport, which was a CSGO tournament. But it's not about television. It's on our player. And I was talking about sports. And yes, as I'm a bit limited about sports with my sport department, I try to tease them with some things they know. It's a really, really long process, but we are more involved in this. So actually, I don't really believe on FIFA and football simulation on television. Yeah, when the general audience see a FIFA game, they just say, okay, it's just like football, but it's just a video game. I believe in sim racing, really, 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 because there's something more on sim racing. And that's why we've done a lot of production about sim racing. We broadcasted for 2 years the official Formula One tournament provided by the Gfinity. And during the COVID, we broadcasted the Formula One virtual Grand Prix and also the Super MotoGP eSport that we broadcasted too, the official championship from this Friday, for example. But we broadcasted also the Formula E virtual and also the 24 Heures du Mans on virtual and the EWTCR. So we are really involved in the sim racing, and I really believe in that branch of esports for television. I hope that more and more the audience will be educated in esports, but that's a long process. And I was talking about Charleroi Esport, which was a really big competition in Belgium 1 year ago. And we were partner of this competition. And we had a lot of issues because it's a violent content. CSGO, it's terrorists, anti-terrorists, so it was a bit tricky. So we work a lot about the legality of this, and we take all the security to be okay, because we are service public. We can do anything we want, and we enjoyed this because 1 week before the competition, we were just like lobbyists on each media of the RTBF, talking about esports and talking about video games, about the violence. Is it dangerous for your child? Does it play too long? Is it a risk for his parkour? So during 1 week, we try to have a chat with people, young people and parents and young parents and players. So we really want to have a role of education about esports, and I think it's a mission. It's one of the mission of the service public in Belgium.
Thank you, Greg. Samy, Bessi, at esports, you manage talents, but you also produce content for television. When it comes to host a TV show, according to you, what are the best talents? People who know how to talk to a camera, coming from the traditional TV business, or people who may have either entered a TV studio but who are esports specialists? What are the best talents to host an esports broadcast on television, according to you?
Okay, so I can also have a background in sports because I'm also an agent, a sportive agent in football. So this is the kind of services that you give to your players, in this case, athlete, football players, is how to react, it's how to make an interview. Because basically, we ask them to be good in what they do. It's meaning playing football. Here it's meaning esport. But everything else have to be managed. And particularly in esport, being there for a long time and having also following players back in the time in my organization, I was traveling with them. I was dealing to be their manager because at that time it was not so organized as now with manager, coach, psychologist and stuff like that. I'm happy that we transit this period and now we are having big structure worldwide, unfortunately not in Belgium, but worldwide, that they are taking care about all those aspects. And speaking about the media part is very, very important to educate them because they don't know what they are doing. They don't know that what is when they tweet the reach that they have, the engagement that they have. And it's like models for other youngsters. And when you say and when you speak to them, they don't realize that they need to act as models. So the part in the education is very, very important. And this is why also with the Belgian Federation, which Esport Engage and other partners are included in, is very important to try to educate in the both ways, meaning to the public, to the television, to the politician also. But the most important are the actors. So it's a big job. I can tell you we start in January and it's just the beginning, but the need is there, definitely.
Okay, Laure, at the Riot studio in Berlin, you do a lot of interviews of players before, after their League of Legends game. What do you think about what Samy was talking about? I mean, the media training. According to you, all the esports organizations like G2, Vitality, and the others, are they training their player to do good interviews with you?
You're opening a subject that is very, close to me because it's something that I've been fighting for the past 3 years with most of the organization I work with. For instance, the easiest way to say it, in football and in sports, you have what you call a mixed zone, which means that after the game, you have to talk to the press. You have to talk to the press, whether you lose or win. In esports, loser interviews are not so common. And to me, it doesn't also serve the organization because we as an audience see these players twice a week during the game and maybe 5 minutes during an interview. If you want to build a player's brand, you need to be able to see him in every aspect, which means when he loses, when he wins, because the audience wants to know what happens when you lose and why you lost and how you recover from that. And if teams train the players to answer, to know how to tackle these questions and how to not feel destabilized by the press and maybe the harshness that they can bring. I mean, if there was a bit more media training to some players, if they didn't have to do it for themselves, because you will have players coming in who already have a big personality, but I often encounter players who don't, I mean, who are shy, who are just new, who basically just know how to play the game. They don't even have to worry about this aspect. And as you said, they have a responsibility. They have to act as models also now, because youngsters and also young players are going to look up to them. So I wish in the future we have a bit more media training coming from teams to the players, but for now it's very succinct. It's mostly players who are already comfortable enough, who can develop their brand on their own, and basically the teams feed from that because they can also utilize them in like advertisement and stuff like that. But players who don't have the ability to build themselves up need to be helped and need to be trained. And there's this discussion around, is it Riot's job to do it? Is it the instructor's job to do it? I feel like it's the team's job to do it, because depending on the esports and depending on the formats, you won't always have a franchise. You can have like a CSGO model, and then Valve would probably never be interested in that. So yeah, to me, teams have to step up in that, because when player wants to share something and they don't, I mean, they're not capable of doing it because they don't have the tools to face the camera, that's sad to me. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Laure. Nicolas Bourdon from EVS. Let's talk about technologies and innovation. A streaming platform like Twitch allows interactivity with the viewers. I mean, obviously there's the chat, but as well some Twitch extension that let the viewer answer some survey, some quiz like this, even to interact in the video game itself, like in Hyperlapse, sorry, my phone is ringing. Hyperscape, the brand new battle royale from Ubisoft that let the audience interact in the game itself. How do you deal with that in your broadcast for esports? Do you integrate all this interactivity in your broadcast?
I think that's one of the big discussions and activities that we're having for the time being with most of the producers in esports environments. That's how can we indeed deal with this level of interactivity and with all the data coming from the fans through the social media or through the platforms such as Twitch. Effectively, one of the point is to facilitate the creation of dedicated content. That is actually, I think the whole thing is all about the storytelling, and how one of the big advantage of all these fans interacting and showing interest about this level of content, these players, this type of action, enables the production to be extremely reactive in the way they can deliver specific types of replays, specific type of highlights, to review specific actions from another point of view. So these are elements that we see extremely appealing. So one of the things that until now and still irritated from the sports environment. So this is something that was done manually. And now we're moving one step beyond to integrate those data and to automate these kind of processes. So by seeing that you have peaks of interactions or reactions on the special actions, could generate automatically a clip that you can replay on the different social networks or provide to the different audiences that were interested to see about. So that's actually one of the things that we're reviewing. On top of that, and since we're talking about data, because data is for us the one of the big richness that you find in an esports environment, is the ability to connect your production environment, your technology of production, to the game engine, and then also there to reproduce some sequences based on the virtual environment is provided by the game engine. Again, that's something that is provided. One of when you're in sports, of course, if you have a replay, you can have a replay of something that has been shooted by a real camera. If the action happened somewhere where the camera was not shooting, it's lost. That's something that you can do in esports. So actually, you can just virtually create a camera which doesn't exist, and that's effectively something that really revolutionized the way to manage replays and highlights in esports environment. And again, all based on the data, and that could be again provided to an audience that was reacting specifically to a specific type of action.
Greg at the RTBF, as you say, during the COVID crisis, we have seen a lot of esports on the traditional TV sport channel.
Yes.
With the e-Formula 1, the e-Liga, the e-Bundesliga, even the tennis tournament of Madrid that move from a real tennis tournament to a virtual tennis tournament on PlayStation. Do you think that those TV channels will continue to broadcast esports after the crisis, when all the traditional sports will restart? Or do you think that they use esports only because they didn't have the opportunity to broadcast real sports?
I guess some use for the bad reason. I guess this COVID crisis serves the esports cause for to be discovered. On the other hand, some for example, the first virtual Grand Prix was really good. The second was really good. But if you see again the Monaco virtual Grand Prix, it was just crap, because they were driving the Formula One just like they drive in NASCAR. So it was not a good image of the esports. And all the media, the big media, decided to broadcast the virtual Grand Prix with guests, with Lando Norris, with Thibaut Courtois, which is great because it's a big light on the esports. But the real player, the real esport driver on Formula One license is so much intense. It's really more interesting to see. It is the real image of the esports. So I guess some will, and we will, but I guess they would play the real esports now, or maybe find a good balance between the gala and the esports competition. And I will back about technology again. Yes, it was managed by the FIA, the DORNA. So the pictures about this competition translated by satellites. So it's a linear broadcast process, so it's good. But when it's about League of Legends, when it's about CSGO, we are speaking about 60 frames per second. But the television is on 25 or some digital on 50, and they use the, I couldn't tell you in English, but entrelacé pictures, as the esport use the progressive. So technically, there is an issue also about the interactivity. It's really important in esport, the interactivity. So I guess the television will continue to broadcast some things that looks like they did before, but about the real esport, I'm not so sure.
Nicolas, numbers of frame per second is very important when it comes to broadcast esports. Is a PC that running hundreds of frames per second, and you have to put that in 20 frames per second to broadcast on television. Is it really an issue?
That's from time to time it's an issue, and I agree. I think effectively turning from a non-linear to linear production can have real effects on the quality of the production. But we tend effectively to see that more and more broadcast networks enables to go higher in terms of quality of distribution. So I think that's something that all broadcasters are now aware of, and namely in the US, there is a lot of change that is happening there. But I can tell you that effectively all this work of conversion and transformation from progressive to to interlace kind of production is impacting many times the quality of the production. So I think Greg is right. And for now, yeah, at the end of the day, a lot of people in terms of audience will see this difference in terms of quality.
A last question for you, Nicolas. What do you think of the broadcast of esports in VR? I mean, in the VR headset. A lot of people are talking about this. Are you working on it? And do you believe that there's a future for the VR broadcast?
Yeah, we've been at the very early stage of VR, first of all, in sports environment, and there have been a lot of attempts in developing this kind of technology. To be very honest, we've seen very quickly that the business model behind VR was quite difficult to develop. But what we've seen next to that is augmented reality is definitely something that where we see a lot more potential, where you can effectively add any types of content or virtual elements that comes into your environment or second screen environment, and that can effectively extend your experience or gives you, as we were talking earlier, interactivity, which is definitely something that people are looking for. And certainly when you see that in esports, and that's also one of the big difference, I think, in terms of media compared to sport. Sports, one of the main revenue stream for sports is actually the rights. While for esports, the main revenue remains the brands. And then the sponsors, they want to have the ability effectively to be exposed in a way or the other. And effectively, the augmented reality can give them this ability by sponsoring some types of replays, by giving them access to special types of interactions with the fans and so on and so forth.
Samy, you come from esports as a founder of Epsilon Esport, the team, the esports organization, and now you're working with talents, with television, with your company, your startup Esport Engage. At the end, do you believe that esports need the support of the traditional media and the linear TV to become mainstream, or esports can continue to develop without the support of the media?
This is a very good question, being here in television. I think that there will be a transition of the television to something in the middle that in esport we created with a platform, broadcasting platform, and the future of the television. This is what they are thinking right now is, okay, what do we do in 5 years? What do we do in 10 years? What do we do in 15 years? Digitalization, even for you or me, Bertrand, we were watching television much more 20 years ago than now. So the television is being digitalized already. And I think, and this is also linked to EVS and their experience they have like in the broadcast, in sport and in football. If you can do something in esport who fits for the esport market, it will be directly absorbed and adapted, and you can use it also for the sports, for the television, because the technicity and the technology for esport is more tricky, let's say.
Okay.
And if you can do that in Belgium, you're the king of the world.
Even better.
That's true. Oh, yes, this is a direct. It's a pass
we'll
for
put
a goal.
the focus in Belgium. No worries.
One last question for you, Laure. In traditional sports, women are often considered as good hosts for the interview of the player after the game, but we almost never see a woman do the commentaries of a football game.
Yeah.
And it seems that it's the same in esports. I mean, when you look at the LEC broadcast, you are not the shoutcasters. You do not do the commentaries. Usually, men are doing that, and you're doing the interview. Is it normal according to you, or does esports repeat the same mistake than traditional sports?
Is it normal? No. Is it to be expected? Yes, it is, because I mean, we saw how esports was built around sports and how similar it was. And in a way, in the same way that in sports you have like some big figures, some big commentators that you can't overpass. I feel like we tend to have the same aspect in esports, which means that you have important names. All this wrapped in the overall toxicity that that is brought by the video games industry itself. I don't feel like it helped, and I had actually a discussion with some women from the industry a week ago about this, and I feel like it's getting better. For instance, now we have Froskeren in the LEC. In most of leagues, you don't see it, but in most of leagues, even in Spain, in Italy, in Portugal, Brazil, you have female play-by-play commentators, which wasn't the case before. So it's getting better. And to come back on the topic that Samy was talking about earlier, you have to have role models. And these role models will push maybe little girls to think that, hey, okay, if I'm doing it, that maybe there's a place also for you. But for now, yeah, it's very similar to sports. No, it's not normal. And I hope that this can change in the future. But I mean, it's by seeing more and more powerful women that will make this change. And it's en route, if I may say, but we're still far from the ideal world that we would have. And when I think that maybe in sports, it's maybe too late because some things are settled and like marked in stone, thankfully esports is like recent enough for us to change these habits and maybe see more diversity, which is what I hope for in the end.
Totally agree, and definitely your role model for this young generation who are watching the broadcast. So thanks for being here this morning, Laure. Thanks to you, thanks to Greg and Samy at the RTBF head office in Brussels. Thanks to you, Nicolas Bourdon from EBS. You're in Belgium as well. You're in Liège right now?
Yeah, I'm the headquarters in Liège, yes.
Okay. Have a good day, everyone. And
thank you, Bertrand.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.